Could we have a question from the Singapore media, please? Yes, Vikram.
Vikram from the Business Times. This question is for Mr. Goodyear. Mr. Goodyear, I just wonder if you could share how your background and experience will equip you to, or will help you to take Temasek forward. And if you'd like to add on what was said about the challenges facing Temasek as you see them as CEO-designate.
Sure. Thanks for that. In terms of my background, it's interesting when you look at my experience over the last 10 years, you look at BHP Billiton, world leading mining company, say, how does that apply to an organization like Temasek? Well, a couple things. First of all, I think as you have a chance to look at some of the background material, my career began in the investment banking business, in the area of mergers and acquisitions and financing, and I worked on those transactions, probably 60 to 80 transactions over my period there. And then I moved into industry, but I moved in a financial role, and the organization was very active, again, in investments and in financing activities. And then moved to BHP 10 years ago, and again moved in the financial role. And BHP, as you might remember, had gone through some challenging times. And again, that was around investments and restructuring and putting an organization together. And as you've seen that over time, I did move into the chief executive role. But it came very much from a financial perspective. The common denominator of business is numbers. And being able to understand those numbers, the application of capital, the distribution of capital, and how you apply that is a universal aspect of business. So if you look at BHP and BHP Billiton a little bit harder, you'll see we ran very much a portfolio model. You know, the chief executive is not going to decide what the tire contract is or what the labor contract is. We're applying capital, we're managing teams, we're setting objectives, and all of those things apply to the Temasek story. So again, I think if you look at it, you'll see it's very similar. I'd say one other thing that's I think a great common denominator, and actually a rare one in the investment world, is that Temasek and BHP Billiton, or some company in the resource and mining business, have a very long-term focus to the way they invest. In the resource business, our payoff times are decades. And today, in much of the investment community, they determine how they perform every day or every hour. And it's a great opportunity to be thinking about investment opportunities in long-term perspective when many others are thinking about short-term perspective. So that's how I look at it in terms of my application here. And then just a couple things in terms of what attracted me to Temasek. Let me just begin by this concept and the discussion around the foundation that Ho Ching has built. And I had a lot of time to look at this organization. As Donna said, these conversations began over 15 months ago, and contact even before that. And so I did take a great deal of time looking at the organization and the people and what's happened. And it's been a tremendous period of foundation setting that's happened over the last 6 and 7 years. And that covers a number of different things. It covers governance and knowledge. It covers the areas of a rigorous analytical process, strategic development. It's items that are absolutely essential to an organization. But one of the most important ones is what I call values and behaviors. And if you look in the Temasek Review, you'll see a series of values. And you will see also, if you look at BHP Billiton, almost complete alignment with that. And so that foundation that's been created by Ho Ching and her team provides an excellent stepping off point for the next phase of Temasek development. So from my point of view, I saw a very strong organization with an excellent foundation that needs to be built to take it to the next organization. And the fact that that work's been done is a great benefit to me. I would then say to be in an organization that has a wonderful set of operating businesses that are global and regional leaders and investments around the world, a wonderful footprint in Singapore, a growing and expanding footprint in Asia, and also an international perspective is, again, for me, a very exciting place to be. You will look at BHP Billiton and see a big part of our performance over the last 10 years has been the development of Asia. So my experience here has not only been certainly rewarding from a performance point of view of the company, but certainly personally very rewarding. So the chance to participate in an organization like that, to me, has really been an outstanding thing. So the combination of a great foundation, a wonderful set of businesses, fantastic people in the organization, and a footprint that we can build and grow on, that to me is certainly a win-win home run opportunity.
Yes, Nicholas.
Hi, Nicholas from Channel News Asia. What is a question for Mr. Goodyear and then a question for Chairman. Mr. Goodyear, you talked about the future plans for Temasek and building on the foundation that's been built. What is your vision for the future plans for Temasek in the next phase, given the fact that we're looking at a bad year or bad years to come? And Chairman, the management team at Temasek now has a very international flavor with the CEO-designate and COO. How is this going to benefit or help Temasek going forward?
Just in the first question, let's see, I've been on board about 5 minutes. And so certainly talking about strategy going forward, it's far too premature to do that. I would just say that, again, very strong team here, building on a strong foundation. I'll be working with the organization here and getting to know the people in more depth and more detail, and we'll be looking at that over time. But in terms of anything specific today, it's far too early to do that.
Yes, no, I've got the second point to cover. Temasek has evolved through the years, but over the last 6-7 years, there's been a spate in the pace of evolution. We were basically a Singapore-centric investment house. We are quite different now. We're Asian and international. And that's also reflected and probably caused by a team which is very much more international. So we're a Singapore-based, Singapore-owned institution, but our area of operation is the globe. So in that sense, I think having someone with global experience, a long-term view of the payout of investments is a great help to continue Temasek on this path.
Juliana.
Thank you. This question is for the Chairman. Juliana Liu, BBC. You say that this process has been going on for more than a year, but I'm sure you also can see how this looks to the outside, that you're changing leadership at a very difficult time for Temasek. So is this, in effect, a vote of no confidence in the way things have been going?
I did not say it's a difficult time for Temasek. The environment is difficult. Obviously, we are affected. And what is happening in Temasek is not what triggered the change. As Ho Ching mentioned, this is a part of a normal process we've been going through. And when we identified a good candidate, we decided it's time to move. Then, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, obviously from the time that we started this process to now, things have changed in the world. They haven't remained static. So we constantly ask ourselves, should we proceed? And finally, we had to make up our mind. Should we proceed or stop the whole process? We examined every aspect, and as I explained, we came to a conclusion that it is the right thing to proceed to make the change in the long-term interest of Temasek.
Ignatius.
Hi, Ignatius Low from the Straits Times. Question for Madam Ho. Can I just be clear that you are, although you're stepping down as CEO, you are also stepping down from the board?
Yes.
Is that right? Did you consider staying on the board to provide leadership, maybe from a different perspective in the years going forward? And if not, then why not?
There's a Chinese phrase called 拿得起放得下. What you can take up, you can put down. We are not here to recruit somebody who is wet behind the ears. I think Chip brings a wealth of experience. He brings capabilities that I do not have, just as the team in Temasek, many of them have capabilities that I do not have. And as a team, I think it's a very strong team. And I like to think that whoever is the new CEO would like to have the maximum space without having to say, is this somebody's pet project or things like that. So I think it is a wise thing for a departing CEO not to hang around on the board. And I think this is a matter of good governance. Having said that, between Chip and I, we have discussed. I'm only a phone call away, an email away. Whether formally or informally, he wants to discuss anything, he wants bounce ideas off, I'm there for him. I would like to see him succeed, because it doesn't make sense to bring in a new person and then not have the success. So as much as possible, I've given the commitment to him and to the rest of my team. And the rest of my team I've also spoken with, and they have also given that commitment that we'll make this a success. It's not a one-man show. Chip will definitely be first among equals, just as I have been. But this is an organization which is both a bottoms-up as well as top-down. It's never a one-way street, because this is an organization of ideas, of people, of a lot of energy. So I don't see myself as needing to hang around to direct it in any way or in any way, shape, or form.
Can I just add, as chairman, that as a matter of principle, and this is shared by Ho Ching as well as other members of the board, not only for Temasek but also in the companies where we can influence through our shareholding, that the outgoing CEO should not remain on the board, in order to give the incoming CEO complete freedom to operate. I think it's a good principle to adhere to.
Could we just have last 3 questions, please, for people who have not asked before? Said.
Since you're undertaking a long-term review of investments and strategy, I think the main concern that's coming out from also the rating agencies is that Temasek is too much weighted towards financials. And in fact, in the report in December, they said that exposes Temasek to unpredictable asset cycles and contagion. Would you like to comment on that, if there's a change from going from, say, 40% of financials to less than that in the long term?
I think the right forum to raise that point will be when we release our Temasek review. You can raise those questions.
Can we please come back to the focus of this media conference? Yes, the lady in front.
Christy Lowe from Today newspaper. I'd like to ask Ms. Ho if you're considering any offers from other companies to join them, whether overseas or in Singapore. And also, for Chairman, in bringing on an international and a foreigner to be CEO of Temasek, are you trying to address some of the concerns of Ms. Ho's link to the Prime Minister, or that, this company is linked to government, and to make it easier for Temasek to make acquisitions overseas?
You want to answer the first part, whether you've been approached for this?
When we heard that Chip has announced his intention to retire from BHP, we approached him with the idea of considering joining Temasek. His first response was, I'm still in BHP, I just want to focus on BHP. Come and talk to me when I'm done with BHP. And so we waited a few months before we went back to him. I will adopt the same policy.
On your second point, whether this is a way of making a change of someone who's related to the Prime Minister, this has been a point that I dealt with on the day that we appointed Ho Ching as CEO, and I think I addressed it quite comprehensively. I was very instrumental in bringing Ho Ching, and that was purely on the basis of merit and not a relationship with anyone. And I've already explained why we're making the change now. It's got nothing to do with the fact that this is a burden that I'm very glad to get rid of. No, that's certainly not the case.
Last question, please. Yes, Bloomberg.
Yu Lin Lee from Bloomberg News. What is your biggest achievements and regrets during your leadership of Temasek? Thank you.
I am not a person who looks back to try and justify a reason for my living. I'm a person who looks forward. And in any case, for anybody in any stage of their life, they will weigh what they want to do. At this point, I'm not weighing anything that I want to do post-October. My focus is still Temasek. Is there a regret? Well, I think if you want to run life with regrets, you may end up doing very little. For us, it's looking at the issues, looking at the pros and cons, dealing with the decision, and then dealing the consequences. And at the end of the day, what we hope to achieve is to put in place something that goes beyond us, that goes from one generation to the next generation, and hopefully carry the values, carry the sort of commitment that we have seen in Temasek, that we hope it will continue in Temasek through the different generations. When you look at any issue, there are always pros and cons. I think on balance, the main thing that I am very happy with, very pleased with, is I have had the privilege of working with a wonderful team, without whom we would not have achieved what we have. We have a strong balance sheet. This was built up over the years, and we continue to build on it. I've got a very, very active board which engages with the management very intensely as and when the need arises. And most of all, I'm actually very delighted that between myself and a couple of my colleagues and Chip's wife, we persuaded him to join Temasek.
Mr. Dana, would you like to make any closing comments before we end?
Any more questions? Well, thank you
Thank
very
you all
much.
for being here.